Welcome to J.R. Hendrick Texan Consort Homestretch Part 2. Here's hoping that Part 2 is just as good as Part 1. Jimmy, take it away. November 25, 1993, Thanksgiving Day, 5:15 a.m. In his own office, Jim is listening to the MSR radio feed on the radio. On there is a priest railing against the Clinton administration for wanting the contraceptive mandates. 8 a.m. The family sits down to a simple breakfast of boiled eggs, toast, and coffee. JR has orange juice instead. 8:55 a.m. Betsy is in the kitchen with the staff working over the Thanksgiving feast. Turkey, dressing, pea salad, broccoli and rice casserole, mashed potatoes, cherry coke salad, and pumpkin and chocolate pie. Meanwhile, JR is in the living room talking to his Uncle Carl and 15-year-old cousin Max. Max was carrying a book with blue and white colors. 2 years later, while JR was interning in Washington, D.C. for the Heritage Foundation, he would find out what had happened with Max as he was in D.C. with JR. 9:25 a.m. Jim, Carl, Max, and Kyle go out for a game of football, with the women watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. JR slips away to study his notes for government and public speaking. His final exam for public speaking class would be to write a 30-minute speech. And both Karen and Jennifer promised to help him. (10 a.m.) JR takes a break from his studies. He goes downstairs. The women are still watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and the men are still outside playing football. So JR goes to the living room to look at a picture of his father and Granddad Swain. It was a picture taken in 1967 when Granddad agreed to let Jim Hendrick take Betsy Swain in marriage. He missed his granddad since his death nearly 4 years ago. 10:45 a.m. JR turns on his IBM ThinkPad to look for his notes for government class. The Macy's Thanksgiving Parade is still going on downstairs. But it's winding down. And he notes that Thanksgiving lunch is coming up soon. But he decides to look through his notes one more time for government and public speaking class. His two favorites. He is relieved that there is no more homework in Spanish or statistics. In statistics, But he's also happy that Jennifer is going to help him with Spanish. And Dave Smith will help him with statistics. 11:10 a.m. The men are still engrossed in their football game. So JR goes into the kitchen to talk to his mother and grandmother. You're kind of out of sorts today, JR. What's wrong? Elizabeth asked. It's nothing, Grandma. It's just this, just this place. You don't feel the same. What do you mean? Madison asked. I think he means he misses his granddad. I think it means he misses his granddad. We all do, Betsy said. If you want to, you can ride Bandit until your daddy comes and gets you. I don't want to ride Bandit. I want to sit here and talk to you guys. Oh, come on, honey. Nothing's changed, Elizabeth said. If they weren't playing football, they'd be going hunting. 12 p.m. The family sits down to Thanksgiving lunch, and Uncle Carl said the prayer. It was a sumptuous feast. 1:50 p.m. As the men are sitting downstairs watching the football game, JR goes upstairs back to his ThinkPad. He begins studying for his government final exam and brainstorming for ideas for his final written speech. 3:45 p.m. Downstairs in the living room, the Dallas Cowboys were clearly beating the Miami Dolphins. And you could hear the distinct cheers of Jim, Carl, and Max. Max was secretly rooting for the Miami Dolphins because his best friend's father came from Miami. JR decides to go downstairs and watch the game with the men for a few minutes. JR and Max talk about his experiences at McLeod Prep School. McLeod Prep was a 2-tier prep school that accepted some people only at the junior high and high school level. 4:35 p.m. JR is feeling morose again because most of the men in the family are involved in the game. And the women are cleaning up and setting things up for leftovers. So he goes out and sits outside on the front porch. He's grateful that at least for Christmas, while the other men and the family are gathered around Kyle, that he would have Brent Clark as a companion in Lake Texoma. He walks out to the barn and looses Bandit, climbs on him, and gives him a light kick, and starts talking to and petting him as he rides. I know just how you feel, Bandit, JR said morosely. I know just how you feel. And the men are drinking their whiskey and getting raucous in the house as the game goes on. The women are upstairs looking through catalogs for deals. And so JR is trying to enjoy the cool fall air with his trusty horse Bandit. "5:05 p.m. Jim walks out on the front porch to find his eldest son moping. "Oh, now, Junior, what the heck? Why's your face dragging the ground?" Jim asked. "I'm lonely," Jared said. "You ain't got no cause to feel lonely. Come back in the house and enjoy the game." "Daddy, you know, since Granddad died, I ain't that much into football." When does that matter? You watch the Cowboys win the Super Bowl." "Daddy, I thought some of Mama's people would make it this year." "Well, let's see. Your Uncle Tom's people are up in Colorado. But your grandma's here. We're all here. But we're missing you. Your Uncle Carl wants to see you." JR walks back into the house and into the den where they are watching the game. "Want a beer?" Carl asked. "No thanks," Jared said. "Smart move," Carl said. "Nothing worse than being drunk on Thanksgiving." 7 p.m. The family sits down to Thanksgiving dinner. This time, it's just Betsy, Christine, Elizabeth, Jim, and JR. "So, Jim, you're bound to return to Chicago on Saturday?" Betsy asked. "Of course." "I have more on the rug." "Of course. Daddy's more on the road than he's home," Christine said. "Don't talk out of turn, Christine," Elizabeth said. "Gotta go. It's my last-ditch effort to give away to get some attention from President Clinton," Jim said. It sounds wonderful, dear. But aren't you barking at the wrong tree?" "It sounds wonderful, Dad. But aren't you barking at the wrong tree?" Jerry asked. "I'm working him, son. If you're studying in public affairs, you've got to learn to walk the politicians. And you got to learn to work the public," Jim said. "You sound just like my daddy there," Betsy said. "Where do you think I got it from? Old man Swain can't be all wrong." "I hear you're studying into public affairs, JR. I don't you be telling me you're going into politics," Elizabeth